I stood in the center of the foyer wearing old jeans and a stained t-shirt, surrounded by 50 people in tuxedos and floor-length gowns. My sister, Madison, had told me this was a casual family cleanup day. She lied. From the top of the marble staircase, my mother, Cynthia, didn't offer an apology. She marched down, shoved a white lace apron into my chest, and hissed, "The caterers quit. Put this on and serve the champagne, or you will ruin your sister's big day." I looked at the apron, then at her. The ultimatum was clear. Submit or be the villain. Before I tell you exactly what I served them along with the champagne, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this story travels. I took the apron. I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I just tied the strings around my waist with the precision of a surgeon prepping for an amputation. My mother, Cynthia, watched me closely, waiting for the tears, or the inevitable tantrum that would allow her to play the victim. But I gave her nothing. My face went blank, settling into a cold, impenetrable mask. It is a look I have perfected over years of boardroom negotiations where a single flicker of emotion can cost you millions. She mistook my silence for submission. She smiled, a tight, triumphant expression, and turned back to her guests. "Good girl," she whispered, patting my cheek like I was a golden retriever. "Now, don't embarrass us." I walked to the kitchen, grabbed a silver tray loaded with champagne flutes, and stepped back into the crowd. To everyone in this room, I was Hannah, the 30-year-old spinster sister who couldn't get a date or a decent job. To them, my silence was the quiet of failure. But inside my head, the noise was deafeningly clear. I wasn't serving drinks. I was conducting a final asset inventory. As I wove through the tuxedo-clad bodies, offering glasses to men who didn't even make eye contact, I wasn't looking at their faces. I was looking at the walls. That abstract painting above the fireplace? It was listed as collateral on the second mortgage. The Italian leather sectional Madison was currently posing on for Instagram, financed at 18% interest. Even the crystal chandelier above our heads was technically property of the bank, and since I had bought the bank's entire distressed debt portfolio for this district at 9 o'clock this morning, that chandelier was mine. A heavy hand landed on my shoulder. It was one of Madison's friends, a guy named Bryce who wore his arrogance like cologne. "Hey, sweetheart, can we get some more sparkling water over here? And make it snappy." He didn't know my name. He didn't know that the watch on his wrist cost less than the tax bill I paid last month. I smiled at him. The kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Of course," I said, right away. I poured the water. I didn't spill a drop. I let him think he was superior because his comfort was about to be irrelevant. This wasn't humiliation. It was camouflage. Being invisible has always been my superpower. It is how I built a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio without my family asking for a loan. It is how I bought the island development where this house sits without them ever suspecting I was the developer. They see a servant. I see a liquidation sale. I moved toward the AV console in the corner of the room, balancing the tray on one hand. Cynthia caught my eye and gestured aggressively at the speakers. "Music!" she mouthed. "Turn it up." I nodded. I set the tray down on a side table and pulled out my phone. I didn't need to guess the Wi-Fi password. Madison used her own birthday for everything. One tap, and I was in the system. I synced my phone to the central hub, bypassing the parental controls they didn't even know how to set. The screen on my phone flashed green. I had control of the lights, the locks, and the massive projector screen currently rolled up above the fireplace. "Music coming right up," I murmured. I selected a playlist, but I didn't hit play just yet. First, I opened a different folder, the one labeled Eviction. My thumb hovered over the screen. The room was loud, filled with laughter, and the clinking of glasses, a celebration built on fraudulent loans and stolen money. They were partying on the deck of the Titanic, and I was the iceberg. I picked up the tray again and walked back into the fray. Let them have their champagne. It would be the last thing they tasted before the water rushed in. I retreated to the kitchen, ostensibly to refill the tray with more cheap Prosecco, but mostly because I needed a moment to look at the enemy without them looking back. I caught my reflection in the polished stainless steel of the Sub-Zero fridge, a woman in a maid's apron, head bowed, erasing herself. It was the exact posture they had trained me for. 5 years ago, I stood in this same kitchen, holding a bank statement that made my hands shake. I had secured a full scholarship fund for my master's degree. $50,000 I had scraped together through grants and side hustles. When I went to transfer the tuition, the account was empty. The withdrawal slip had a signature at the bottom. Hannah. But the loop of the H was wrong. It was my mother's handwriting. When I confronted Cynthia, she didn't deny it. She didn't even look up from her magazine. "Madison needed a car, Hannah," she said. as if explaining why she bought milk. She got that internship in the city. You don't expect her to take the bus, do you? She is too pretty for public transit. You can apply for loans. You are the smart one. I should have called the police right then. I should have reported the fraud and sent my own mother to jail. But I didn't. And for years, I hated myself for that weakness. I wondered why I stayed. Why I let them hollow me out like a pumpkin. But now, staring at my reflection, I understood. It wasn't weakness. It was conditioning. This is the trap of normalized cruelty. When you grow up in a house where love is a currency you can never quite afford, you start to believe that being used is the only way to be valuable. They didn't just steal my money. They stole my compass. They groomed me to believe that my sacrifice was the rent I had to pay just to occupy space in their world. They normalized the abuse until I couldn't tell the difference between a family and a parasite. But that day in the kitchen, 5 years ago, the conditioning cracked. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply stopped. I stopped sharing my life. I stopped asking for permission. I moved into a studio apartment that was little more than a closet with a hot plate. I ate ramen. I walked to work, and I took every single dollar I earned and poured it into high-risk, high-yield real estate debt. While Madison was posting selfies from her stolen SUV, I was buying the strip mall where she got her extensions. While Cynthia was bragging about this house, I was quietly acquiring the lien on the land it sat on. They thought I was failing because I wasn't flashing cash. They didn't realize that real power is silent. They were playing checkers with stolen pieces. I was playing chess with the board itself. I looked down at the bottle in my hand. They thought I was the help. They had no idea they were standing inside the stomach of the beast, and I was about to close the jaws. "Hannah!" Cynthia's voice screeched from the other room. "We need more ice. Stop lazying around." "Coming," I said to the empty room. I picked up the tray. The anger that used to choke me was gone, replaced by a cold, clinical anticipation. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was the executioner. And it was time to head to the gallows. The party migrated into the great room, a cavernous space dominated by a 20-foot limestone fireplace and floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the infinity pool. I followed, not because I wanted to hear the speeches, but because the AV console was tucked in the shadows of the corner, right next to a potted fiddle-leaf fig. That console was my target. Madison stood on the second step of the floating staircase, her hand resting possessively on the banister. She looked every inch the conqueror in her emerald silk gown, holding court while her fiancé, a hedge fund manager named Bryce, stood a step below her, looking bored but expensive. "Everyone." Madison tapped a spoon against her crystal flute. The sharp ding-ding-ding cut through the chatter. "If I could have your attention for a tiny moment." The room hushed. 50 faces turned toward her. I stood near the back, clutching my silver tray against my chest like a shield, hoping to blend into the drywall. "I just want to thank you all for coming to warm our new home," Madison cooed, her voice dripping with practiced humility. "It has been such a journey getting here. You know, they say you can't choose your family, but you can choose your zip code." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. I stared at the back of her head. "Zip code," I thought. "You don't even own the doormat." Then, her eyes scanned the room and landed on me. A slow, shark-like smile spread across her face. She wasn't done. She needed a prop for her performance. "And speaking of family," she said, raising her voice, "let's give a special round of applause to my big sister, Hannah. Look at her back there." Every head turned. The spotlight of attention hit me like a physical blow. I didn't move. I didn't smile. She might not have a career, or a husband, or, well, anything really. Madison laughed. A tinkling, cruel sound. "But she certainly knows how to hold a tray. We are so lucky she was available to help out today. It is hard to find good help these days, right?" The laughter was louder this time, fueled by expensive wine and the relief that they weren't the target. I saw a few people whisper behind their hands. The spinster sister. The failure. But Madison wasn't satisfied with just humiliation. She wanted total destruction. She leaned down toward Bryce, but she projected her voice just enough so the front 2 rows and I could hear it perfectly. "Don't worry about tipping her, babe," she said, loud and clear. "She is working off the debt of being born. Mom says she owes us back rent for the first 18 years anyway." The air left my lungs. The debt of being born. I looked at my mother. Cynthia was standing in the front row, beaming. She caught my eye. She didn't look away. She didn't look ashamed. She raised her glass to Madison and took a sip, her eyes locking with mine in a silent challenge. "Take it," her look said. "Take it, because you are nothing." That was the moment. Before that second, there was a tiny, microscopic part of me that felt guilty about what I was about to do. A part of me that remembered Christmas mornings and shared meals. But as Cynthia swallowed that wine, swallowing the cruelty right along with it, that part of me died. It withered and blew away like ash. They didn't just see me as a servant. They saw me as a mistake that needed to be billed for its existence. I lowered the tray to a side table. My hands were perfectly steady. The sadness was gone. The hesitation was gone. All that was left was the cold, hard geometry of the takedown. I turned my back on them and walked toward the AV console. They thought I was retreating to the kitchen to cry. They thought they had won. They were wrong. I wasn't leaving. I was just turning up the volume. I walked to the AV console, moving with the steady, unhurried pace of someone who knows the clock is ticking in their favor. To them, I was just the help fiddling with the volume knobs. To me, I was the pilot locking the cockpit door before the nosedive. I slid my phone out of my apron pocket. The smart home app was already open, glowing with a layout I knew better than the lines on my own palm. I didn't hesitate. I tapped lockdown mode. Across the room, the heavy oak front doors groaned as the automated deadbolts slammed into place. Thunk. A few heads turned toward the sound, confused, but nobody moved. They were too busy refilling their glasses. Too busy laughing at Madison's cruelty to notice the cage closing around them. Then, I killed the music. I didn't fade it out. I severed it. The thumping bass line vanished instantly, leaving a silence so sudden and violent it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. The laughter died in throats. The clinking of glasses stopped. 50 pairs of eyes swung toward the corner where the music had died. I didn't shrink back into the shadows. I stepped out from behind the fiddle leaf fig. I wasn't holding a tray anymore. I was holding the microphone meant for the best man's toast. Cynthia frowned, taking a step forward, her face twisting into a scowl. "Hannah? What are you doing?" I said, "Turn it up, not off." "Put that down." I ignored her. I looked at the microphone in my hand. It was heavy, cold, substantial. A weapon. I tapped the grill once. Screech. The high-pitched feedback tore through the room, sharp as a knife, making everyone wince. Madison covered her ears. Bryce looked annoyed, stepping forward as if to take the mic from me like a toy from a toddler. "Give me that," he started. I didn't apologize. I didn't retreat. I stood tall, my posture shifting in a single breath. The slumped shoulders of the servant vanished. The averted gaze disappeared. I straightened my spine, lifting my chin, inhabiting the body of the woman who negotiated multi-million-dollar buyouts before breakfast. I let the mask fall and shatter on the floor. The air in the room changed. They could feel it. It was the shift in atmospheric pressure before a tornado touches down. I looked directly at Madison, standing on her staircase throne, then at Cynthia, frozen in her tracks. I let the silence stretch until it was uncomfortable, until it was suffocating, until I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the next room. When I finally spoke, my voice wasn't the whisper they were used to. It was amplified, booming through the surround sound speakers they had financed on credit, filling every corner of the house they thought was theirs. "Testing," I said, my voice flat and terrifyingly calm. 1, 2. Is everyone listening? Good. Because the service portion of the evening is officially over. "This is a beautiful house," I said, into the microphone, my voice echoing through the room. "Stunning design. Prime location. It's a shame no one here actually owns it." Confusion rippled through the guests, then panic hit Cynthia. Her face drained as she realized I'd found the files she'd buried for years. "She's drunk," Cynthia screamed, charging toward me. "Cut the mic! Stop her!" Madison shouted from the stairs for Bryce to kill the feed. He lunged for the outlet. Cynthia reached for the microphone. For a moment, it looked like they might silence me. I stepped aside calmly, sent Cynthia stumbling into a plant, and tapped my phone. The projector dropped. A mortgage deed filled the wall. The room froze. "Do you recognize this?" I asked. "The co-signer agreement for this house. Dated 3 years ago." I zoomed in on the signature. "My name. That's a good forgery," I continued. "Except I was in London that day." A second document appeared. Passport stamps and a flight manifest. Unless I can be in 2 places at once, I didn't sign it. Cynthia stared, speechless. "This is forgery. First-degree mortgage fraud. The bank discovered it yesterday and initiated foreclosure." Madison sobbed. Bryce said nothing. "They sold the debt this morning," I added, stepping forward. "And I bought it." I held up the certified deed. "I'm the bank now, and I'm foreclosing." The room went dead silent. Bryce stepped away from Madison, already calculating. "Is this true?" Madison begged him to deny it. Cynthia couldn't speak, her forged signature glowing behind her. You have 30 days to vacate, I said. The screen changed to a notarized eviction notice. Anything left becomes my property. You can't do this, Cynthia shrieked. We're your family. No, I said calmly. You were my overhead, and I just cut costs. I removed the apron I'd been wearing, folded it carefully, and placed it on a tray beside Madison. My lawyers will invoice you for the money you stole from my college fund, I added. Expect it Monday. I turned to leave. Cynthia slammed herself against the door, grabbing my purse, trying to rip the phone from my hand, desperate, feral. I didn't fight her. I just raised my phone. The recording light blinked red. Touch me again, I said quietly. And this eviction becomes an arrest. She froze, then stepped back, defeated. I opened the door and walked out. I didn't look back at the house, or the people inside it. I drove past the guests, past the ride they assumed I'd need, and into my own car, toward my real home. Texts flooded in. Apologies. Please. I selected all. Deleted. For the first time in 30 years, the silence wasn't lonely. It was peace.